Alright, everybody with the knowledge of cryptids. I'm hunting for information on a cryptid I'm not even sure has been marked down yet. There have been multiple sightings in my small town of Merrill, Michigan, something of which doesn't match a single cryptid I've read about yet, and I've read a lot. I personally have not seen it, so I'm sorry for breaking that rule, but I have 3 witnesses that I would put my life on, and I really want to know about this thing. The first witness is my uncle, and he is the main reason I'm on this hunt. When he was young, he used to take night walks in the neighbor's woods, right before sunrise, as long as it was dark enough so no neighbors could see him. He would take a very dim flashlight with him on purpose, and if he thought anyone saw him or was following him, he'd put his hand over it and hide in the woods' darkness. He claims the main things that scared him there were raccoons and opossums. He never had problems with people on his walks, but he still knew the risk of trespassing. Though his story isn't very exciting, he got the best view on the creature out of all 3 witnesses, claiming that it only stood a few feet tall and had legs that bent backwards with large fly-like eyes, and the rest of it looked like a kangaroo and a monkey hybrid. There are many cryptids that are close in visuals, but none of them have thick hair and big eyes like this one had. I showed him drawings of other look-alike cryptids. He's dismissed every one of them. He claimed that he was walking out of the woods just as it was getting brighter. The sky was gray and the woods still dark from the trees, but the road almost visible down the whole mile. On his way across the road back to the house, he saw the thing a little ways down the road. It's said to have crossed the road in 2 steps, despite being short, and disappearing into the woods my uncle had just exited. The second witness is deceased now. He was a natural conspiracist, so it came as no surprise when I heard his story years ago. Though his description was much less valuable, I have the belief that this was the same cryptid. A couple miles away from the first incident, this man said he had seen a small, ape-like figure jump almost to the tops of the trees. Unfortunately, this is the least resourceful sighting because I can't ask this man to answer anything else he left out or to give more info. This is all I have for this sighting. The third is my grandma's good friend, Sylvia, from a state away. Every 4th of July, they park a camper in my grandma's yard and stay for a week or 2 to visit all the friends and family they left behind when they moved out of state. Keep in mind, these folks have never even heard the stories of this creature, and for this story, I was in the house as it happened. Sylvia's husband had a few beers with my grandparents. There's a big tree on the side of a barely used road, and he walked over to it to use the restroom. As he was peeing on this tree, he noticed the same big black bug eyes that my uncle had seen. It was staring him down from the tree line across the road, and as soon as he focused on it, the cryptid backed up into the brush and was gone. Me and my uncle freaked out about this, as you would, because it had been 6 years or so since someone we knew spotted this thing. As crazy as it sounds, me and my whole family believe and know that this creature exists. We've even narrowed down where it possibly calls home based on how far sightings go. Sorry for the long and many paragraphs. If you have any idea what might be lurking around mid-Michigan, please leave a name of a cryptid or a description/drawing. My family and I all want to know what so many of us have seen. Any ideas? There's more sightings too. These are just the most reliable, believable, and descriptive. I've been down with a really bad case of bronchitis this week and have done nothing except lay in bed. I was so sick that I had my ex come pick up our dog because I couldn't take care of him. Last night was the worst I ever felt. At some point, I vividly remember feeling something jump on the bed and lay along my legs. I assumed it was my roommate's dog. The room was pitch black, so I couldn't see. It was very comforting, though. My bed is in front of a window, and both dogs love to lay on my bed and watch out the window, so it's not uncommon for either dog to be in my room, as I always leave the door cracked for them to come and go. I thanked my roommate this morning for putting his dog in my room last night, and he gave me a really strange look. He said his dog was with him in his room the entire night, and that he didn't want to disturb me. So I'm not sure what laid by me last night. This isn't paranormal, so forgive me if this doesn't belong here. But I looked through the rules and didn't see anything specific about what the stories must contain, so here it goes. I'm going to try and explain this as best as I can remember. This happened when I was in high school, probably around 16 or 17, and I'm now 27. So please forgive me if I can't recall every detail. At the time I had a girlfriend, and there was a hip little neighborhood in our city called Kensington that we would always meet up at to spend time together. She lived far north in the city, and I was pretty far south. Kensington was right around the middle and a nice place to hang out. We were walking away from the train platform, almost a full block away, when a man in a suit comes running at us with a panicked look on his face. Frantically, he says, "Can you help me? My wife just went into labor and I was supposed to meet my sister at Starbucks in a couple minutes, but I need to run to the hospital. Can you please bring her this bag?" And holds out a plastic shopping bag. I believe it was for the makeup store Zara. My girlfriend kind of nudges my arm, obviously thinking this is a little sketchy, but I say, "Yeah, for sure." He tells me her name. We will say Sarah, I don't remember. Thanks me, and runs straight for the train platform. Starbucks is a few blocks away, and as we walk, my girlfriend is saying, "This is creepy. What if we're drug mules right now?" When I realize that the bag is strangely light, I tell her and she suggests we look inside. I'm conflicted by this, but concede that it's a reasonable thing to do, seeing how odd this whole situation was. When we look in the bag, all that is there is a couple of crumbled up receipts and another crumbled up bag. We open the second bag, and there's nothing inside. We're freaked out, considering just turning around and not even going to the Starbucks, but my curiosity got the best of me at this point. We walk the remaining block or two, and as I walk into Starbucks, I call out, "Sarah?" A woman stands up, yells very emphatically, "Thank you so much. I have to go to the hospital now to be there for the birth, but I appreciate this so much, blah, blah, blah." She throws her arms around me in a huge hug and then runs out the door. And that's it. I looked up social experiments, TV shows, and every couple of years I remember in Google to see if anyone has experienced anything similar. But nothing. Never have had a reasonable suggestion that makes sense to me, and it's just something that bothers me when I think about it to this day. And these weren't university-age people, by the way. These were adults in their late 30s or 40s at least, so I don't think it was a school project or anything. Any idea what this could have been for? What the purpose of this whole interaction was? So for the better part of 15 years, I've been seeing something. It's tall, very tall, probably 8 foot, and it's pitch black. Everything around it seems to have a black staticky thing around it. Every time before it attacks, the same things happen. I have an immense sense of dread. Whatever direction it's coming from, my ear on that side goes immediately deaf. And I see it, and then I pass out. When I pass out, I always wake up in some weird version of wherever I passed out previously. Be it a classroom or church, I'm there alone with it. It stalks me and tries to get me. When I look at it, I feel depressed and want to give up. So far, I've been clawed, scratched, and bitten by it. All left real-world marks when I would wake up. The worst time happened when it stretched his arm unnaturally long and began to choke me. I woke up and barely escaped, but woke up to an asthma attack that almost got me sent to the ER. It used to only happen once every few years. It bothered me, but not enough to make me really seek help. But lately it's happening a lot. In the past months, it has happened at least 3 times. The most recently, I barely escaped it, running inside my house, and even my dog got scared. I'm so tired of this. I don't expect to defeat or kill it, but I have a kid on the way, and I can't let this thing ruin my life anymore. If any of you have any ideas of what it is, please let me know. I feel like now that I am 23 and growing up, I'm starting to feel the gravity of many things that happen and have happened around me. Being a curious person, I like to investigate things, like to make my own theories around them. Yesterday morning, I started having this conversation with my mom about my theories and what dreams actually are and what the science says about it. In the midst of that conversation, I suddenly recalled an incident that happened with her many years ago. My mom is not at all a person who likes to make things up. She's always so skeptical of superstitions, and I and only I know that if she claims watching something with her own eyes, which freaked her out and almost froze her to death, she is speaking the truth. It happened around 12 years ago. My family was going through a financial crisis, and we used to live in my maternal grandma's house back then. Recently, a thief had also been sighted in the house, who who ran away in panic because of the fear of being caught. Many scary things were happening, and we were serious towards all of them, as they were causing our family a lot of stress. I didn't get to know exactly when and how, but one evening my mom told my grandma that she saw a hairy demon in the bathroom, and almost froze to death seeing that. As I was a stupid 11-year-old kid back then, I took it as a fun horror story and let it be. When I recalled this incident yesterday, I decided to ask about the details to my mom. So I asked her to explain how the appearance was of that thing, actually. She told me it was sitting on the floor of our bathroom, and it looked like an early man. Told me it was so gigantic that when it stood up on its legs, it easily reached the ceiling. As she froze and started screaming for help from my dad, this creature took only a couple of very, very long strides and disappeared. She says she doesn't recall much details about how this thing actually disappeared. I asked her why she calls the thing a demon. She said it's because that's what her first guess was. I asked, "So you mean to say it looked like a caveman?" She said no, it wasn't a man or human in the first place. "A beast?" I asked. She said yes. She said it had very long hair all over its body, and the hair had a soil-like color. Immediately my brain said, Bigfoot? Then I googled Bigfoot and showed her the images. She said that it was very much of the same appearance as those images. I was shocked to hear that. The thing is, I'm from India. Nobody ever heard of any Bigfoots in India, let alone in an urban environment, and that too in one's bathroom? As weird and illogical this incident sounds, it really happened. My mom rarely believes in things like these, and is always very serious towards life. She's never been attention-seeking or something, and this incident never helped her in any way. In fact, she was facing many more challenges in life that this incident was a fresh wound on already wounded skin. So what do you guys think of this incident? How can one see a Bigfoot-like creature in one's own home, which then disappears and is never seen again? Could it be something else? Also, there's a little incident about how my grandma saw it too around the same time, which I'm not including so that I don't make this super long post longer. Please share your thoughts in the comments. When I was about 10 years old, I would go to bed around 8:30 p.m. I used to fall asleep in my mom's bed. She had a TV in her room, so I would fall asleep to cartoons. And when she would come up to go to bed, she would wake me up and take me to my bed. One night, I was sleeping in my mom's bed as per usual, and I woke up to the door opening. I didn't wake up to look who it was because I figured it was my mom. It was just me and her living at our house. I heard her walk towards the bed and then stop. It was a good 5 minutes before I heard the bed creak from her laying down. She laid down and put her arm around me. She never said anything, and neither did I since I was half asleep. She didn't wake me up to move me to my room, so I just figured she was letting me sleep in her room that night. I drifted off. When I woke in the morning, I rolled over and saw my mom was gone. I walked downstairs and saw her sleeping on the couch. The title screen for Pretty in Pink was playing on the TV in the background. She woke up and smiled and asked me what I wanted for breakfast. I told her I'd just make myself a bowl of cereal. I headed to the kitchen and turned around to thank her for letting me sleep in her bed last night. She looked at me confused and said, "You didn't sleep in your room?" And I told her no. She said she fell asleep on the couch. I said, "No, you came into the room last night." She looked at me even more puzzled and said, "No, I've been down here the whole time." I kept telling her, "No, you laid down next to me, and I even remember you putting your arm around me and stroking my hair." She looked horrified. Again, we lived alone. My mom has no history of sleepwalking either. To this day, my mom and I are still freaked out by this and don't really like to talk about it. Never happened again. Never had any other paranormal activity in the house either. Last spring, when my son was 3 years old, we drove by a big white church. This church is one that we pass often driving around town. It is also the place of his current preschool, but at that time, he attended a different preschool and had never stepped foot in or talked about the big white church. So we drove by one day, and he said, "Oh, there's the church that I ate cereal in." My husband and I looked at each other and said, What do you mean? We've never been there before. We asked some additional questions, but he didn't really answer. However, he was very adamant about being there and eating cereal. This happened during a very difficult time in our lives. My father-in-law was on hospice and dying of cancer. For weeks we were up and back to my in-laws' house, this church being along the route. He said it a few more times and then never mentioned it again. Fast forward to today, he currently attends preschool at said church. He's been going since September and we love it. It is Christian, though we aren't very religious. Anyway, I got the monthly newsletter and it mentioned that next month is pajama day, where the kids wear pajamas and eat cereal. I told my son and asked him if he remembered eating cereal there before. He said no and had no recollection of saying that he did. Is there any explanation to this? It gives me chills when I think about it. When I was little, a physical story would visit me every night. It would come through the door the size of a film and would expand to the size of my wall, revealing a story. As it moved by, the bits that would go away would shrink to the size of a thread and go into the wall. The film was long and would move across the middle of my room, not attached to the wall or anything like that. It was outline drawing, not colored in, so I could see through it. The lines were the teal/purple/pink color you see when you stare at a light for too long. Story felt friendly, but sometimes it was invasive. I would hide from it under my covers, but it would still manage to scroll past my eyes in a smaller version. Interestingly enough, I could call on it in different locations and it would come to me. And I also know that I was without a doubt awake when these things happened. It wasn't imaginary. I actually have aphantasia, which means that I physically cannot produce mental imagery. This phenomenon happened to me almost every night and gradually went away as I got older. Would love to answer further questions if you have any. A homie needs answers. This has been eating at me my whole life. In the comments section, OP was asked to tell some of the stories if he could. This was his response. I wish I remembered them. I only remember one scene slightly. The way the stories worked is they would be a long, stagnant scene, like if someone drew on a scroll and moved that scroll along, showing a very long drawing. Some were longer than others, but always the same format, as described in the original post. One scene I remember was a desert scene that went into a jungle scene. The jungle scene had cool plants, and a water source at the front with a rock in it, some animals like a cool frog, and a tiger head poking out of the leaves about to get water. That's about all I can remember right now. Sorry if that isn't an interesting story. Around the 29th of December, 2022, I was traveling from Santa Barbara to a small town in the middle of Nevada, where I was going to stop and see if I could make it back to my house, or if I should wait for the rest of the day. I would like to say there were 4 other people in our car, including me. 3/4 of us saw this lady. She had a pale face, nearly white. She had scraggly brown or black hair going down past her shoulders. And she also appeared to be wearing casual clothes that were clean, but weirdest of all, she had no face. And I and everyone else who saw her are 100% sure that she had no face. I think this was about 6 or 7 in the morning. The sun wasn't quite out yet. Preceding this were some very weird events in which road signs made no sense and were slowly becoming more and more common, to the point of seeing them every 5 feet. And the fog closing in. This might be related, yet might not. As I don't remember the road, I couldn't tell you if those signs were actually in our reality or not. I'm sorry there isn't much detail. I'm sure I didn't fall asleep because I was very anxious and we were only a couple minutes from our Airbnb. Edit. I've become more interested with this over the past couple of days. I will try and help with your questions and publish a larger post later. User thatnectarine9108 had an interesting response that I thought y'all might want to hear. I've seen one of those as well. I and the other 2 people in the vehicle saw a faceless man on Highway 136, just over the bridge of the Illinois River leaving Havana, Illinois, heading toward Macomb in September 2004. We were students at Western Illinois University, and my roommate and some guy she was having a very short-lived flirtmance with got this crazy idea to drive to Chicago and to go to Cubs game on a Monday night, and I tagged along. The Cubs played the Pirates. Sammy Sosa hit a homer in the first inning, which was pretty cool to see. It was a fun memory. It was very early morning hours when we passed through Havana. I think we might have gotten back to Macomb around 3 or 4 a.m., so somewhere in the 2 or 3 o'clock hour. There's a bridge over the Illinois River on the edge of town, and just over the bridge, the headlights shine bright on a man on the road. It scared the crap out of all 3 of us that he was there at all. He was wearing like a big, shaggy brown sweater, had a walking stick, and had shaggy hair and maybe a shaggy beard. Where the rest of his face should have been, it was just blank, or a blur, I don't know. I think we swerved to avoid him. I don't remember seeing him move. He was just standing there in the middle of the road. He would have seen us coming. It was really strange. I work overnights. My husband stays home with my daughter. I left around 10 p.m., and around 12:30 my daughter messaged me and asked me if I was home. I told her no. She said when she let the dogs out to go to the bathroom, she swears she heard me calling her name from a distance from the backyard. It really freaked her out, to the point where she was crying. She's usually very level-headed and never cries, so it freaked me out too. I told her to wake my husband up and have him look around and lock all the doors. She's not one to lie about things. I don't know the explanation, but she genuinely thought it was me. There are no women that live in our neighborhood that would know her name either. Our house was built in 1900, so we have had spooky things happen to us there many times. I'm not saying I think it was necessarily supernatural, though. Just very strange. Has this ever happened to anyone else? Hello all. This is happening ever since I moved into a new house and sleep in the attic. I always notice my phone goes from 90% battery to 3% overnight. So I put it on the charger every night. I discarded this thought as it is an old phone and battery health isn't that good anymore, besides updates are done at night. That is when I started noticing when I slept in the living room because of a sick pet, my phone goes from 90% to 85% battery overnight. So I started testing. All of this testing I did below is over periods of months. Firstly, I checked all the wiring of the house and used an EMF meter if everything is grounded properly. Nothing there. The EMF meter is a professional one, and I correlated the readings with an EMF meter from another brand. Nothing there. Then I went and put my phone off and left it in the attic in the same spot. My phone still drained overnight. I got another phone to test and the same thing happens. I also tested this phone in the living room. After that I got my laptop and put it in the same spot as I put my phone in the attic. The battery drains much quicker on the laptop as well. Then I got a humidity and temperature meter and put it on the spot where I always put my phone in the attic. No fluctuations whatsoever, and that correlated with the rest of the house. Completely normal readings. Then I did something that might make me scared. I put the EMF meter at night on the spot where I normally put my phone. Luckily it didn't go off, but the battery did die within an hour and a half. I wanted to test things with a compass, but I needed an analog one that I'm still looking for. Maybe magnetic field spot or something's going on in that one particular area in the attic. I don't know. What's draining batteries on this spot? Do some of you have any ideas? I'm wired scientifically, but also very open, as I'm very spiritual. Update 1. I put my JBL Extreme 3 box there just to see if something happens. The music stops, what looks like to be random times, and the speaker shuts down without making the "I'm going off" sound. When I turn the speaker on again, it works as if nothing happened. When I move the speaker to the living room or another part of the attic, it doesn't stop until the battery runs out, plus it makes the "I'm going off" sound when the battery hits critical. I will be conducting more tests based on advice in the comments. Thank you. If you've just come to the end of this video, I want to give you a big thank you for watching or listening, whatever your preferred method is. My name is Zach and I'm the narrator for Fear Harbor. If you have any stories that you'd like me to narrate, please let me know down in the comments section. Otherwise, if you feel so inclined, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. Have a great night.